Emily and Jamie and Mrs. Moore for leading us in our worship. Can we just give them a word? The Dean, who is sitting there, whose church this is when it's not mine, is going to give you all jobs. You all become canons of the cathedral. Well done. We know that this synod is focusing on the relationship between church, school and family, household, as expressed in the really important report, Growing Faith. And we're looking at various dimensions of that. And instead of me standing up and talking, what we thought we would do, and very graciously and very kindly, Jamie and Emily and Rory and Lucy agreed to join in this, that we would have a little conversation up here and invite you to listen in. So we're thinking about connections between church and home and school, and I want us to think first of all, and for me to ask you, about where you hear about God. What are the places, the contexts in which you hear about God? Do you want to speak in the microphone?
Mainly I hear it in school assemblies.
Okay, where else do you hear about God?
At churches.
In churches? Yeah. Are there other places you hear about God?
Well, you can hear about God anywhere really, because you can he's supposedly everywhere, so anyone can bring up a conversation about him.
That's really helpful, thank you. So we've mentioned schools, haven't we? And you've talked about assemblies, so do you want to say a bit more about how you hear about, where you hear about God in school? Who wants to say? Do you want to say something about that?
We'll sometimes hear about him in the classroom or when you're having assembly.
So in the classroom, because
you're learning about God.
When you're learning about God. And is that through classes you have about religion, about Christianity?
Yeah.
Are there other places in school where you hear about God? Do you hear about God in the playground? No, okay. Do you
I mean, there's occasionally some people who will mention him because they believe in this kind of stuff, but it's not. I don't think it's said often enough, and especially in high school, you only hear it in certain lessons, and you don't hear about him in different kind of English lessons or something.
Yeah. Well, actually, you could, in fact, in English lessons, because when you think about so much of what you study in English have images and stories and allusions to Christianity, to God. So that would be a place to hear more about God, wouldn't it be? Who in school then, if we think about school, who are the people that we hear talk about God? Which people or sorts of people?
Well, mainly the people running assembly, like Mrs. Moore or any of the teachers, and on some occasion the padres from the RAF Honington and Kellen Sally from the church right next to our school.
Okay, so particular individuals there that you hear talk about God. Who else talks about God in school?
Religious studies teachers who mention it in this topic.
Do you find yourselves hearing about God from each other? Do you have conversations? And I've asked you about playground, but maybe even in the classroom, do you hear about?
I've had a few friends who talk to me about it sometimes.
Right. Okay. So if we've thought about where we hear about God and who talks to us about God, and we've thought about that particularly in school, I want us just to think about worship. And we've already mentioned two places where you experience worship. One is in church, and one is in school, in assemblies, acts of collective worship. And I wonder if you could just talk a bit about what you value, what works, what doesn't work, which one do you prefer, what are the ingredients or the context, what are the things that work for you in terms of acts of worship?
Well, I prefer school assemblies because I know everybody around me, but in church I could be like sitting with complete strangers.
So there's something important about being with people that you know.
Yep.
Okay. Rory, what do you...
I prefer school assemblies because you can ask questions.
So what happens in an assembly? Who asks the questions? So the person who leads the assembly asks the questions, and then do they ask you to respond to that?
Yeah.
And that's better than sitting still and just listening. Yeah. We all know that. That's really important. Thank you. Lucy, do you want to tell us about what you like and don't like about school assemblies and church?
Well, church, you can get people need to to me. I'd rather if you talked more to people next to you and you communicated with people you might not necessarily know.
So you'd like that, or it doesn't happen generally?
It doesn't happen as much as I'd like it to. And in assemblies at school, it doesn't really get mentioned much to me in high school, so I don't get much of that at high school. Right,
so church would be the place where you really experience worship, but it doesn't work in the way that it would be really helpful to work. Is there anything you want to say about that, Emily? About where you like? Is it school assemblies or church that you like best, and what is it you like best?
I prefer church because, at school, it feels like some people don't take it seriously; they're just joking around.
Right. So in church they take it seriously, but then Jamie said that the school, at least you're amongst people you know, but maybe you at church know the folk you sit with, do you?
Yeah, there's lots of people there I know.
Okay. So just a last one to draw some of that together. If you were given a free hand to plan worship, to design worship, what would be the ingredients that you would want to make sure within it that would work for you to enable you to worship God?
Well, one of my ingredients for worship would be trust.
And trust between?
The person who owns the church, or the priest and me.
So you want a relationship with the person who's leading that's trusting?
Yeah.
That's really important. Thank you. What other things would we like to see in worship? Rory, do you want to say something about that?
Maybe a time you can ask questions.
So going back to the point you made earlier, so some sense of that you can participate in it, that there is that you share in how the worship happens by exploring what it means. Emily, did you want to say something about that?
I'd say friendship and community. So if there's not any of that, then who can you talk to at church? You need someone to talk to.
So there's a quality, this picks up with the trust question, doesn't it? And knowing people. So there's a quality of the community. Do you want to say what sorts of things you think are important, Lucy?
This is the children's view. Not all of us will understand the words that are being said to us, and also some adults might not understand it. Sorry, no offence. And I feel we need something to explain what they mean, so we can connect with it more and understand.
And what are there other things around? Music or other things that would just help in terms of worshipping God? That types of music or whether it's stories or forms of words. What sort of things would you like to see?
Probably when there's a reading, the church that I go to doesn't necessarily put out like the words for it, and I like to follow along usually.
Right. So that would be helpful, wouldn't it? Any comments on music, types of music you prefer that help you worship God? Did you pick the songs we just sung? You didn't. Sorry?
You know them.
You know them though, right.
I kind of prefer like more jolly, if that makes sense.
Jolly, yes, jolly's good, yes. Any other comments about that? Jamie, do you got any thoughts about music? Thank you. This has been hugely helpful in getting us into to asking the sorts of questions and exploring the sorts of issues that we want to spend the rest of the morning doing. And what you have done is said things which I suspect a number of the adults are sitting here thinking, we wish our worship was like that. And it's a challenge to us, and it's a challenge to us to take some of those points that you've made about do we understand what we're saying? Do we trust one another? Are there good relationships so that we actually care for one another? Is the form of worship one where we can ask questions and we can engage with that? So that's really, really helpful. I'm immensely grateful to you, because this is, I can imagine if we picked 4 adults to sit here and have this conversation, they would not have been so willing as you have been. So let's thank them hugely. Now, as a little token of our gratitude to you, we've got party bags. Because Diocesan Synod is a party, isn't it? Here we are. And for Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Lauren is leading one of the workshops later. So,
thank you
Lauren,
so much.
thank you.
Thank
Brilliant,
you.
thank you. Well done, well done. You were fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Okay, you want to go and sit?